So to start this project, what I want to do is first walk through with you the chapter 22 and 24 information that we're going to be covering from the text. So chapter 22 is all about master budgets and chapter 24 is all about standard costs. And we're going to see throughout this project how these kind of tie together. So before we get started, I essentially wanted to show you, once you get this file downloaded from your assignment, please make sure that you put your name at the back when you save the file, so that way I can identify whose it is when I'm grading. A couple things to mention. We're going to walk through this blank budget and the standard cost change information and the standard cost files, or I'm sorry, tabs in the file. Your responsibility for the project is going to be this green tab for the actual 2022 income statement and the 2023 master budget. Now, the master budget we walk through is essentially the year before of this exact same file, okay? So you will use this video to help you complete each one of these, because we're also going to be completing a budgeted income statement that will help you with this information. Please also make sure that as you go through this, you keep in mind that half of the grade is really for just using Excel. Okay, so I'm trying to help you guys get a little bit of exposure. Some of you are going to be a little bit further along than others, and that's okay. But I want to get you some exposure to these tools that we can use in Excel. Okay, down below is the points for the project itself. And so please make sure that you are referencing this. And I also don't want you to forget about this actual versus budget reflection. That is going to be on the last tab. Okay, so it's kind of an overview. So what we're going to do is we're going to work through chapter 22. What is master budgeting? Okay, now I do have a file here that is master budget solution, or the tab in the file. Please note that there are not any formulas in here. I want you to use formulas. This is just a reference page that has all the correct numbers in it. Okay. All right, so let's get started. First of all, when we think about budgeting, we think about reasons to put a budget into place. And the reasons for doing a budget is so we can plan for how our company is going to operate, what our sales goals are, what our targets are, and ultimately, what do we need to produce to be able to sell those products. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to start with the sales budget. Now, I'm not going to expect you to put together an Excel file of a spreadsheet with a budget and a change information, but I do want this to help you think about how to calculate and compute the different sales budgets and production budgets. Okay, so we always start with a sales budget. And so when we think about a sales budget, what's the best way to think about a budget in general? Well, we're going to use prior year information or the year before's information kind of as a starting point, and then we change things as we become aware of things that will impact our budget. So in the previous year, we sold 500 units. This year, we're expecting in 2022 an increase of 35% due to a new customer. And we also have the selling price. Okay, so this sales budget is broken out into expected sales units, unit selling price, and total sales. So for our expected sales units, we can use Excel to calculate for us the sales units. So if last year was 500, I'm going to take that times 1.35. because I'm expecting a 35% increase. And so 675 is the units we expect to sell. If we sell them at a price of 3,500, again, that information is right here in the text. That means our total sales are going to equal the selling price times the units. So this is our total sales budget. Now, once we know our total sales budget, now we want to move into production. So the important thing to remember is that our production budget might vary from what we expect to sell. And the reason for that is because we don't want to start the next year with no inventory. So if we expect to sell 675 units And we want to end the year with certain units. If we read this here, it says there weren't any boats left in inventory last year, and management would like to start the 2022 year with inventory on hand. Okay, that would be the goal. And so, and as I think about that, I need to update this date. I'm sorry. We want to start the following year with inventory on hand. So on January 1, 2023, we want to have inventory. We did not have inventory at the beginning of 2022. Okay, so it says there was no boats left in inventory in 2021. So we want a budget to end the year of 2022 with 25 completed units. So I'm going to put those in here. That means my total required units or required production units is actually 700. Now, if we think about the fact that we had 0 left to start the year, we are going to be required to produce 700. Now, let's say we had 10 to start. We wouldn't have to produce the entire 700. We would only have to produce the 690, but we have none. So we need to plan on in 2022 producing 700 units or 700 boats. Again, just to contrast, this is different than this number. Why? Because this is what we expect to sell, but we want to produce 700 so we can start 2023 with inventory on hand. So now that we have our production budget, the way this is broken out is based off of everything needed to produce our products. If you think back to chapters 14, 15a, 17, our total manufacturing cost is direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. And so we have a section of direct materials, which includes 3 different types of materials. So we're going to create that budget. Then we have a direct labor budget, and we have a manufacturing overhead budget. So let's start with direct materials. So if management expects to end last year with some direct materials, that means in 2021, this is what they expect to end the year with for each of these direct materials. Now, again, we want to make sure we don't run out. So we want to end the budget year with this amount of direct materials. And all of these are per pound. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is that this tells you here how many pounds we need to use per unit or per boat. And then this tells you the expected cost per pound. Okay, so we need all of this for budgeting. This pounds per unit is based off of a previous year information, what a boat took in the past, same as the cost, how much it cost us, and where would we find that? Things like invoices from our order history. Okay, now, one thing to keep in mind is, again, the production units. So for direct materials budgets, we need to know how many required production units we have. Well, it's 700. And so what I'm going to do is make sure that for my required production units, that I am gathering my starting point as 700. Okay, so and actually, I'm just going to fill that in just so we know where it comes from for each one of our 3 direct materials. Okay, that's what we're starting with. Now, could I have just typed in 700? Yes, but I want you to use the power of Excel. Link those cells, put in those formulas. Okay, so now it says plastic parts, direct materials, pounds per unit produced. Okay, it takes 400 pounds per unit. So I'm now going to calculate my pounds per unit times my required production units. I need 280,000 pounds of plastic to produce those products in my budget year. But remember, I want to build some cushion. Okay, so this is my buffer, my cushion. And that up here is 4,000. That's what I want to end the year with. So I'm simply going to add these together. And my total required materials are 284. But now the one thing to note is that this should be 2021. And I am starting my budget year with 800. Therefore, I do not need to acquire those materials. So I'm going to subtract those. And what I need to purchase is 283,200. That's my budgeted purchases. if my budgeted cost per pound, which we're going to learn later is called standard cost, pounds per unit, I need $2 to spend on those plastic pounds. So if I take that times my pounds needed, that's how much I am going to spend on plastic parts. I'm going to do the same thing now down below for metal parts and paint. I would encourage you to stop the video now and try to fill this out and then come back and check yourself. So metal parts, direct materials per pound produced. Okay, if I go up here, I need 500. So if I take 500 times 700, I need 350,000 pounds of metal. But I'm going to add my buffer. And so this is what I want to end with. Remember, this is my buffer, my cushion. So my total required materials, I'm going to add these, 355,000. Now remember, I'm starting the year with some, it's 1,000. So I don't have to buy that 1,000, I already have it. So I'm going to subtract that out of there. And now I'm going to take my cost per pound for metal, which is 50 cents. And my total cost for metal is 177. Now I'm running out of space down here. I can't see the top anymore. So I'm actually just going to highlight this row here and I'm going to do view. And I'm going to split my screen. Okay, what that's going to allow me to do is I can even move this now. I'm going to scroll back up here so I can make this a little bit easier on myself. I want this information here for my paint and stickers. Okay, so paint and stickers per units produced is 10. Need 10 pounds of that. So my total needed is 7,000 pounds. I want a buffer of 100 pounds of paint and stickers. And so I'm going to add those together. That's my total required materials. But remember, again, I need the buffer, the cushion. That is 100. I'm sorry. I did that wrong. I'm sorry. Let's go back. Hopefully you guys caught that before I did. Desired ending is, no, that is right. 100. Goodness gracious. 100. I'm taking out. So let's move this. This is my buffer. There's where I got myself mixed up. Sorry about that, everyone. All right. So now my beginning balance that I already have is 20. So now I take my required minus my 20 and I get 7,080. My cost per pound is a little bit more expensive, $5. So my total cost is $5 times 7,080. All right, so now I've arrived at my total cost of all of my direct materials purchased. So I'm going to need to budget for paint and stickers, metal, and I'll notice I'm just adding all these up, and plastic parts. So the total of all my direct materials is $778,800. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove my split. So that's how we complete the direct materials budget. Again, we need to know required production units, how much it takes per unit to produce our items, what is the total amount of pounds needed for production, what's our desired ending inventory. That gives us our total required materials, take into account our beginning direct materials in pounds, because again, we don't need to repurchase that if we already have it. Think about buying milk when you don't need it quite yet. Okay, we can take that out of the equation, incorporate our cost per pound, and then calculate our total cost of plastic parts for the direct materials purchases. So I'm actually going to stop this first video here. We've covered a lot related to budgets. We have, through this video, covered the sales budget and the production budget that tells us how many total units we need to produce, and the direct labor budget. I'm going to now finish a second video covering our direct labor budget and our manufacturing overhead budget.